of it. Thank you all for being here. A couple of days ago, we were on the steps of the Capitol to talk about Build Back Better. That was the theme of Build Back Better with women and what we needed to do in the legislation to address previous injustices, whether it's environmental injustice, economic injustice, and the rest, to unleash the power of women, to give leverage to children, people with disabilities, and the rest with this important legislation. Always about the children. That was about the children. Today we're gathered to talk about the climate crisis and the provisions within this legislation about the children. I just left some children downstairs from Mom's Clean Air Force. They had drawings and the rest. They were little children, but they understood better the need for us to address the climate crisis than they're Valencia and Natalia, and they had drawings to that effect. They're busy, though. They have another engagement, so they couldn't come up here. They're spreading the word. And as I said to them, and I say to our guests who are gathered here, the outside mobilization on all of this is what brought us to this place where we can pass significant legislation to help America meet its emissions goals and to also help us help other countries meet theirs. So today we're gathered under the leadership of the League of Conservation Voters and other groups who are with us. Tiernan Sittenfeld is here, and she's going to be talking. She's our lead presenter. But we're here with the chair of our climate crisis. Well, it has its own specific name, the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis. Kathy Castor, Sharice Davids, Stephen Horsford, Andy Kim, Mike Ushero, Lauren Underwood, Haley Stevens, and joined by others, members of the Select Committee, Veronica Escobar and Congressman Caston. They're members of the Select Committee. Thank you for joining us. And to all of the groups who are represented here for your outside mobilization, let us applaud them. For their outside mobilization. As I've said over and over, inside maneuvering can only take us so far without the outside mobilization to get the best possible, boldest initiative. So the outside mobilization has gotten us to a maneuvering position and now take us across the finish line on this. We're very blessed to have a President of the United States who understands the science of this, that it is clear the climate crisis is here and it's taking its toll. The recent IPCC made clear we face code red for humanity because of the climate crisis. And that is why, inspired by the American people and led by our climate champions and President Biden, our Democratic majorities in Congress are taking action. I wish this could be bipartisan, but that's part of the public sentiment that we have to have success with. Now, President Biden says to me, you don't have to talk to me about climate. I was the first member in Congress to introduce legislation decades ago to address the climate crisis. Maybe in the Senate. Al Gore was in the House, and he was doing that too. So we take great pride in having great leadership early on, pioneers in this fight. The President has made this very special to his agenda. He will go to Glasgow and want him to do so with legislation that is passed that helps, again, confirms our commitment to the Paris Accords by honoring our commitment for our emission standards. And then the President, again, has a build. This is today we're talking about Build Back Better for climate while creating, it's about jobs, 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 jobs. This is a jobs bill, creating good paying jobs to be us preeminent in the green technologies in the world. It's a health issue, clean air, clean water for our children now, for our children right now. It's a security issue because the security experts tell us with all of the, well, you know what they are, the rising sea levels, the encroachment of deserts, the thermal management of the planet, the drying up of rivers, great rivers of Asia, the list goes on. All of those things cause migration, competition for habitat and resources. It's a security issue. And of course, it's a moral issue to pass the planet on to future generations in a responsible way. So in my view, as I say, it would be a dereliction of duty to build infrastructure that takes us in the wrong direction instead of in the positive direction. We intend to do that. Now let's keep up the drumbeat of Build Back Better on climate, and now it's my privilege to yield to the fearless climate leader. I've seen her in action, relentless, persistent, dissatisfied, but determined to meet the goal from the League of Conservation Voters. Tiernan, where are you? Right there. There's Tiernan. Thank you, Tiernan. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much, Speaker Pelosi, for your tireless leadership for climate solutions, for jobs, and for justice. Clearly the most pro-environment speaker we've ever had by far. And thank you to all of the incredible speakers who are here today. We are so pleased to be with you. I am here on behalf of the League of Conservation Voters, Climate Power, the Climate Action Campaign, and climate activists all across this country who are working tirelessly to help ensure that Congress acts on climate at the scale that science and justice require by passing the Build Back Better Act now. We are all in and working very closely with our partners and allies, environmental justice leaders, labor unions, the young people, the children, my children and all of our children, students, the private sector, and state and local officials who are calling on Congress to meet the moment and to pass the climate test. We must cut climate pollution in half by 2030, and we must transition to 100% clean energy once and for all. As I said, we are so grateful to all of the members of Congress here today and all of those who are fighting so hard for transformational progress on climate. They are fighting hard for their constituents. They are standing up for them every day. And that is so, so important as we have seen the deadly and devastating impacts of the climate crisis all around us. We have members from out west who have experienced really horrific heat and fires, to members in the Midwest and up and down the East Coast whose constituents are suffering from floods and deadly storms. It is so unacceptable that nearly 1 in 3 people in this country this summer alone have experienced climate-fueled extreme weather, and this has to stop. That 1 in 3 people applies to every single member who's here, to constituents in their districts. So even as people across this country are suffering already from the impacts of the climate crisis that will only get worse if we don't take immediate action, we are seeing big polluters and their allies launch false and really pernicious attacks on members of Congress. Why? Simply because these members are supporting badly needed and overwhelmingly popular solutions to climate, to environmental justice, for advancing clean energy, and creating and sustaining good-paying jobs. Well, the good news is that people in every single state and every single district across this country are all in. They agree that it has never been more important or more urgent for Congress to act on climate and to pass the Build Back Better Act. The time for Congress to pass the Build Back Better Act and send it to President Biden is right now. I know all of the speakers here are intent on doing that. I'm really honored to turn it to our next speaker, the chair of the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis. We are so grateful to her, to all of her members, and to her staff who are working tirelessly day in and day out. Thank you, Chair Castor.
Well, thank you, Tiernan, and the League of Conservation Voters, and all of these climate champions who are standing here today. Well, this is it. It's code red. It's a code red moment. But Democrats are answering the call. And we're fighting for hardworking American families to create good-paying jobs, cut taxes, lower costs, and build back better with clean energy. We are going to level the playing field because it is time for polluters to pay for the harm they have caused to the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, the climate that we share. And low-cost, clean energy and American-made electric cars and trucks are coming off the assembly line already. And we intend to make sure that all Americans enjoy the benefits. We know what we have to do. And our only hope to avoid catastrophe is to act with urgency, to act now. This year has sent us many warnings. July was the hottest month ever in history, and this year is likely to be one of the hottest of all time. The climate crisis is clear. The climate crisis is a clear and present danger to American families who are facing brutal heat waves, devastating floods, failed electric grids, and historic wildfires. That is why we are fighting so hard for the Build Back Better Act with President Biden. It will make historic investments in clean energy, in climate resilience, in environmental justice to make America stronger and more resilient. Let me say it again. This is our code red moment. We have to get this right. And I am confident with these climate champions, these members of Congress who are tested, who are standing up for the folks back home, who understand the moral obligation we have to our kids and future generations, we are going to get it right. One of those champions is my good friend and colleague from Illinois, Congresswoman Lauren Underwood. Lauren? Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. Climate change is an emergency that demands urgent, bold action. The Build Back Better Act is bold action. This historic legislation builds on the bipartisan infrastructure package to tackle the climate crisis by helping communities transition to clean energy while creating good-paying jobs to power our future. As my constituents in Illinois know far too well, climate change is already here. Extreme weather has been disrupting the planting and growing season and threatening the livelihoods of farmers in Illinois for years. Climate change is a major threat to our national security. It's a public health crisis, and it costs our economy billions. We must come together to address this crisis by building back better, making our communities more resilient to climate change while putting millions of Americans to work, upgrading our electric grid, installing solar panels, and weatherizing buildings. We don't have more time to wait. Thank you. And now I'll pass it over to Congresswoman Sharice Davids.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm short. My little box, please. No, I'm kidding. Hello, everybody. I'm Sharice Davids. I represent the Kansas 3rd Congressional District. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate. And also thank you to our advocates and activists who are here really pushing for the policies that we are working so hard on. I want to start off with kind of a simple fact that's well known to the folks at home in the Kansas 3rd, but sometimes surprises folks here on Capitol Hill. The Weather Channel ranks the Kansas City metro area as 5th on its climate disruption index. And that makes Kansas City, or the Kansas City metro area, one of the top cities in the entire country that's going to be impacted by climate change. We're already seeing the effects of that, from winter storms that left a lot of folks in the community that I get to represent without power for days. Earlier this year, to the floods that have left people stranded and really threatened a lot of businesses and homes for folks. You know, we're not coastal, we're not in a desert, we're not in a forest. But the climate change that we are seeing at home in Kansas is very real, it's very pressing, and it's very important. And, you know, we don't want this to be the reality for future generations. We're hearing all the statistics. We don't want our grandchildren to have to deal with the effects of climate change. And I think that during the 3 years that I've been here, feels longer. During the 3 years that I've been here, I've served on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and I've had the chance to vote on and pass bills and policies that are going to address this. And From that time that I've been here, I see resiliency, I see hope, not just in my colleagues, but in the folks who continue to show up every single day. And I'm going to continue to show up. I know that we can build on some of the work that's being done at the local levels. We've got some great stuff going on in the Kansas City metro area. And I know that we're going to continue to work on getting these bills through. And I think when you think about what the future holds, I want to make sure that people know that we're not just talking about promoting clean energy industries, say that 3 times real fast, but we're also talking about promoting an amazing economic driver that is going to leave our grandchildren in a much better place. And it's going to leave, I didn't get to talk to Natalia or Valencia, but it's going to leave them in a better place too. So I'm proud to, Mikey Sherrill is here. I'm proud to work with you. I'm going to pass it off to you so you can keep up the hard work that we're all trying to get done here. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Charisse. You know, it was sad for me to hear what the speaker had to say about this not being bipartisan. Because when we see our glaciers melting and our rivers drying up, when we see hurricanes and tornadoes and flooding, wildfires across this country like we've never seen, to think that not every single member of Congress is on board to address this right now, today, is hard for me to understand. Because in New Jersey, this is a bipartisan issue. Maybe it's because we have more Superfund sites than anywhere in the nation. Maybe it's because my former governor, Christine Todd Whitman, was head of the EPA. Maybe it's because my predecessor's father was a conservationist who set aside critical watersheds that are protecting us now from dire flooding. Maybe it's because of that horrible flooding in Hurricane Ida, which left several people dead and was worse than Superstorm Sandy. But maybe it's because people in New Jersey understand how critical this is for our children, for our planet, for our neighbors. And that's what we need to see more of here. And that's why we have to pass the Build Back Better bill. The time is now. It's truly critical. Thank you. And next, I will turn it over to my good friend, Susie Lee.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so honored to stand here today with my colleagues, the League of Conservation Voters and Climate Power, 2 important organizations that have been leading the fight to really sound the alarm, but more importantly, encourage us to action in addressing the devastating effects of climate change. I represent Las Vegas, Nevada's 3rd congressional district, and we're still recovering like the rest of this country from the devastating impacts of the pandemic. But we can't continue to ignore the climate catastrophe that's not coming, it's here now. And it's impacting Americans every single day. We're facing historic flooding, wildfires, and never-ending droughts as we're experiencing in the desert Southwest. I represent the district that has Lake Mead, the water source for much of the Southwest, and the Hoover Dam. And Lake Mead is at the lowest level it's been since the Hoover Dam was constructed. And that's why I'm supporting the Build Back Better agenda and the bipartisan infrastructure bill. In fact, I'm proud to tell you that my bill, the Large-Scale Water Recycling Project Investment Act, is included. Water recycling is just one way that we can preserve our most precious resources, and I'm excited that we have the opportunity to put that into action. But the work doesn't stop there. Nevada is already a leader when it comes to clean energy, especially solar energy, and we get, obviously we have about 300 sunny days per year. But the Build Back Better Act will create thousands of clean energy jobs, reducing our carbon emissions while combating climate change. And I am proud to be a supporter and can't wait to vote for the Build Back Better Act. And with that, I will introduce my dear friend, Haley Stevens from Michigan.
Well, it was an absolutely unbelievable spring and summer in my home state of Michigan, where we watched historic storms bring catastrophic flooding over and over and over again. In fact, the day I was touring storm damage, another storm hit, knocking out power lines, shutting down businesses, basements, cars, homes, and roads destroyed as our existing infrastructure just couldn't keep up with the increasing precipitation and extreme weather caused by climate change. Heavy rains now drop 31% more precipitation in the Midwest than they did 50 years ago. These events are leading to more flooding, erosion, and runoff into our waterways, and they are declining our water quality and exacerbating the dangerous effects of toxic algae blooms. A changing climate and decades of underinvestment in hard infrastructure products have brought us here, and my constituents in Michigan are paying the price. The EPA estimates that higher temperatures associated with unmitigated climate change could result in approximately $6 billion annually in added road maintenance costs and over $1 billion in impacts to rail transportation by the end of the century. Early estimates show that Michigan will need at least $5 billion in hard infrastructure investments just to bring our highway systems up to par. The cost to replace lead service lines is equally high, with an estimated price tag of $45 billion needed to address the full scope of lead service line replacement nationwide. This is our reality. At least 9.2 million households have lead pipelines, and there's another estimated 12 million that we've got to get to across this country. This summer, even for the lucky ones who didn't have their basement flooded or their property destroyed, major stretches of highway were closed and shut down, leaving people unable to work. Just as our small businesses were opening up again, they had to shut down to address what the flooding caused, their power outages. This is terrible for southeastern Michigan. It's absolutely right. The time is now to come together in a bipartisan fashion as a government to build back better. I want to get this done at the state, local, and federal level, and we can do this. So let me bring up my colleague, Stephen Horsford.
And we will get it done with the leadership of our Speaker. Thank you, Speaker Pelosi and Tiernan, with the League of Conservation Voters and Moms Clean Air Force and all of the organizations. I'm Stephen Horsford, and I represent Nevada's 4th District, which is 52,000 square miles, half the state of Nevada, including Las Vegas. But we put our public lands to good use to help create a clean energy economy, one that creates good-paying jobs, that helps address the needs of our environment, while also reducing the cost of energy to consumers. And in my district, like my colleagues, we can feel the reality of climate change, with record high temperatures, choking wildfire smoke, and devastating drought. So climate action is about protecting our planet, but it's also about fairness and about justice and about jobs. In the southern Nevada neighborhoods most impacted by extreme heat, 80% of residents are people of color. Today, we are here to push for bold action now to advance climate justice and to create millions of good-paying jobs through the Build Back Better Act. And I'm proud that this package includes 2 of my proposals, the Dynamic Glass Act and the Electric Power Infrastructure Improvement Act, which will both incentivize green investments and create good-paying jobs. None of this is about politics. And as my colleagues have said, Madam Speaker, this is bipartisan. Why? Because our constituents, whether they be Republicans, Democrats, or independents, they want climate action now. And with the Democrats in charge of this House and the Senate and the White House, we will deliver. with the Speaker's leadership.
How wonderful it is to hear our colleagues bring their enthusiasm, their values, and their strategic thinking to this, with examples from each of their districts. The sadness that it means for the families and the disappointment for businesses and the rest. We can do something about it, and we will. And we will. I want to thank Kathy Castor for making the report that she did, much of which is reflected in the legislation, the report of her committee. I want to also acknowledge that our chairman, Peter DeFazio of the Infrastructure Committee, has, in his bill, what many of you worked on, emphasized building back in a green way, and that Congresswoman Sharice Davids is on that committee, bringing the perspective not only of her district, but of tribal communities that are so essential to the judgments that we make when we're talking about water and building and all the rest. So we have the beautiful diversity of thinking geographically, generationally, ethnically, in every possible way. And we will achieve what we need to do because it's absolutely necessary. So what's our goal? Our goal is to pass this legislation, our goal to meet the standards that we have, 50% 2030, 100% 2050. What is our purpose? And to do so in a way that is a model for the world. We fully intend to do it. And we couldn't do it without, again, the leadership of our colleagues that we heard from and so many more in the Congress, but also the outside mobilizing. So thank you all for being here. So many other groups downstairs. And I call them, thank you to your organizations, but also to your volunteers. In this and as in every other thing we do, our VIPs are our volunteers. They are the ones that make it all happen. So again, as has been said, this is bipartisan across the country. Across the country, high numbers in support of protecting the planet. And actually in a poll today, it said that it supports some of the things it's seen about legislation, but 57% said they wanted to see more. And this is what this is about. So we want to do more. We want to do it now. Climate action now. Thank you all for participating today. Thank you.